them all. Some say the greatest of them. Certainly the biggest, Brekka said, voice and eyes round and earnest. Am I telling this tale, or you? Thorkel said, a dark eyebrow rising. You, father, Brekka said, dripping his head. Thorkel grunted. Snaka was of course the biggest. He was the oldest, the father of the gods. Eldest you called him, and he had grown monstrous huge. Which you would too, if you had eaten your fill each day since the world was born. But his children were not to be sniffed at either. Eagle, bear, wolf, dragon, a host of others. Kin fought kin. And Snaka was slain by his children, and he fell. In his death the world was shattered, whole realms crushed, heaved into the air, the seas rushing in. Those mountains are all that is left of him. His bones now covered with the earth that he ruptured. Brekka whistled through his teeth and shook his head. It must have been a sight to see. Heya, lad, it must have been, when gods go to war. It is no small thing. The world was broken in their ruin. Heya, Orca agreed. And in Snaka's fall, the Vasin pit was opened, and all those creatures of tooth and claw and power that dwelled in the world below were released into our land of sky and sea. From their vantage point, the world looked pure and unspoiled. A beautiful, untamed tapestry spread across the landscape in gold and green and blue. But Orca knew the truth was a blood-soaked saga. She looked to her right and saw on the ground the droplets of blood from the injured wolf. In her mind she saw those droplets spreading, growing into pools. More blood spraying, ghostly bodies falling, hacked and broken, voices screaming. This is a world of blood, of tooth and claw and sharp iron, of short lives and painful deaths. A hand on her shoulder, Thorkel reaching over Brekka's head to touch her. A sharp drawn breath, she blinked and blew out a long ragged sigh, pushing the images away. It was a good throw, Thorkel said, tapping Brekka's spear with his water bottle through his eyes, though his eyes were still on Orca. I missed though, Brekka muttered. I missed the first throw on my first hunt too, Thorkel said. And I was 11 numbers. 11 summers. Where you are only 10. And your throw was better than mine. The wolf robbed you, eh, Orca? He ruffled Brekka's hair with a big hand. It was well cast, Orca said, eyeing the clouds to the west. Closer now. A west wind was blowing them, and she could taste snow on that wind. A sharp cold that crackled like frost in her chest. Stopping her water bottle, she stood and walked away. Tell me more of Snaka, Brekka called after her. Orca paused. Are you so quick to forget your friend Harek? She said with a frown. Brekka dropped his eyes, downcast, then stood and followed her. Orca led them on, back into the pine woods where sound was eerily muted. The world shrinking around them, shadows shifting, and they climbed higher into the hills. As they rose, the world turned grey around them, clouds veiling the sun, and cold wind hissed through the branches. Orca used her spear for a staff as the ground steepened and she climbed slick stone that ascended like steps alongside the white foaming stream. Ice-cold water splashed and seeped into her legs, bindings and boots. A strand of her blonde hair fell loose of her braid and she pushed it behind one ear. She slowed her pace, remembering Brekka's short legs, even though there was a tingling in her blood that set her muscles thrumming. Danger had always had that effect on her. Be ready, Thorkel said behind her, and then Orca smelled it too. The iron tang of blood, the stench of voided bowels, death's reek. The ground leveled onto a plateaued ridge, trees felled and cleared. A large grass-roofed cabin appeared alongside a handful of outbuildings, all nestled into a cliff face. A stockade wall ringed the cabin and outbuildings taller than Orca. Asgrim's steading. On the eastern side of the steading, a track curled down the hills, eventually leading towards the village of Fellur and the fjord. Orca took a few steps forwards, then stopped. Spear leveled as Brekka and Torkel climbed onto the plateau. The stockade's wide gates were thrown open, a body upon the ground between them, limbs twisted, unnaturally still. One gate creaked on the wind. Orca heard Brekka's breath hiss through his lips. Orca knew it was Asgrim, broad-shouldered and with iron-grey hair. One hairy arm poked from the torn sleeve of his tunic. A snowflake drifted down, a tingled kiss upon Orca's cheek. "Brekka, stay behind me," she said, padding forwards. Crows rose squawking from Asgrim's corpse, complaining as they flapped away, settling among the treetops, one sitting upon a gatepost, watching them. Snow began to fall, the wind swirling it around the plateau. Orca looked down on Asgrim. He was clothed in wool and breeches, a good fur cloak, a dull ring of silver around one arm. His hair was grey, body lean, sinewed muscles showing through his torn tunic. One of his boots had fallen off. A shattered spear lay close to him, and a blooded hand axe on the ground. There was a hole in his chest, his woolen tunic dark with crusted blood. Orca kneeled, picked up the axe and placed it in Asgrim's palm, wrapping the stiffening fingers around it. "Travel the soul road with a blade in your fist," she whispered. Brekka's breath came in a ragged gasp behind her. It was the first person he had seen dead. Plenty of animals. He had helped in slaughtering many a meal for their supper. The gutting and skinning, the soaking of sinew for stitching and binding, the tanning of leather for the boots they wore, their belts and scabbard for their sea axes. But to see another man dead, his life torn from him, that was something else. At least for the first time. And this was a man that Brekka had known. He had seen life's spark in him. Orca gave her son a moment as he stood and stared wide-eyed at the corpse, a flutter in his chest, his breath quick. The ground around Asgrim was churned, grass flattened, a scuffed boot print. A few paces away there was a pool of blood-soaked boot print. A few paces away... Sorry, I read that twice. A few paces away there was a pool of blood soaked into the grass. Tracks in the ground led away. It looked like someone had been dragged. Asgrim? Put someone down, then? Was he the one screaming? Brekka asked, still staring at Asgrim's corpse. No, Orca said, looking at the wound in Asgrim's chest. A stab to the heart, death would have come quickly. And a good thing too, as his body had already been picked at by scavengers. His eyes and lips were red, wounds where the crows had been at him. Orca put a hand to Asgrim's face and lifted what was left of his lip to look inside his mouth. Gums and empty blood-ragged sockets. She scowled. "Where are his teeth?" Brekka hissed. "10 have been at him," Orca grunted. "They love a man's teeth more than a squirrel loves nuts." She looked around, searching the tree line and ridged cliff for any sign of the small two-legged creatures. On their own, they could be a nuisance. In a pack they could be deadly with their sharp-boned fingers and razor teeth. Thorkel stepped around Orca and padded into the enclosure, spear point sweeping in a wide arc as he searched. He stopped, stared up at the creaking gate. Orca stepped over Asgrim into the steading and stopped beside Thorkel. A body was nailed to the gate, arms wide, head lolling. Idrun, wife to Asgrim. She had not died so quickly as her husband. Her belly had been opened, intestines spilling to a pile on the ground, twisting like vines around an old oak. Heat still rose from them, steaming as now settled upon glistening coils. Her face was misshapen in a rictus of pain. It was she who did the screaming. What did this? Thorkel muttered. Vaesen, Orca said. Thorkel pointed to a thick carved rune on the gate, all sharp angles and straight lines. A warding rune. Orca shook her head. Runes would hold back all but the most powerful of Vaesen. She glanced back at Escrim and the wound in his chest. Rarely did Vaesen use weapons. Nature already equipped them with the tools of death and slaughter. There were dark patches on the grass, congealed blood. Blood on Asgrim's axe. Others were wounded, but if they fell, they were carried from here. Did men do this? Thorkel muttered. Orca shrugged, a puff of misted breath as she thought on it. All is lies, she murmured. They called this the Age of Peace, because the ancient war is over and the gods are dead. But if this is peace... She looked to the skies, clouds low and heavy snow falling in sheets now, and back at the blood-soaked corpses. This is the age of storm and murder. Where's Harik? Brekka asked. So, that was the first chapter of The Shadow of the Gods by John Wayne. Depending on how this format does on the larger world market, I might keep going or I might try something else. If there is anything you would like me to read, just know that I am not the author of the content I'm currently reading, and I would have to possibly ask for permission to read more of either this book or any other book I choose. So choose and pick carefully and try to reach a consensus amongst yourselves as well as possible. And I will seriously consider it if this does well enough. In the meantime, I wish you a very good evening, and I hope you are safe and secure wherever you are. Goodbye for now.